Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching BAM, the Political Vigilante. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We have been censored so much. You'll see on the scroll below all the great ways to support our show. We have Venmo. We have patreon.com/Graham Elwood. We have rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. And it's important. Reason I bring that up is because the Restrict Act is a horrible piece of legislation that is coming down the pike, and it's coming pretty hard and pretty fast. And it's the amount of tech censorship is unreal. I just did a video recently, which please hope you watch it, just showing how I have a new comedy special out called Manifested. It's available at grahamelwood.com. And I've put ads on Instagram to promote. I've, put clips of the special and done boosted posts, basically, which is just an ad pay. I'm trying to pay Instagram money to get the special out there, get more people to watch it, and get more followers on Instagram, right? So I've had 6 ads rejected, 5 of them being called too political. One said they didn't like that it was me talking about dating. I was giving dating advice or trying to sell dating advice or something, which is hilarious. So it's relevant because we're so censored and restricted in this country, which is why the Restrict Act is really a serious issue that we need to pay attention to. And I wanted to bring on the show a friend of the show who's been very big on net neutrality. He's been very big on this Restrict Act. He's the co-host of the Anything Can Happen game show that you can watch this April 22nd live. Just go to grahamelwood.com. He's the host of Get Your News On with Ron. And a very funny comedian. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Ron Placone.
Hey, Graham. How's it going, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So let's just get right into it, Ron. Tell us exactly. We've talked a little bit about it on this show, but tell us what the Restrict Act sounds like. It just keeps getting worse, and and give us the status and what people can do to try to stop it.
Well, first of all, it's amazing. They're not even trying to hide it. They are literally calling it the Restrict Act. They're not calling it the Freedom Internet Apple Pie bill or something. They're literally just calling it the Restrict Act. They're like, yeah, we don't give a shit. There are so many layers to how terrible this bill is. It is the Patriot Act 2.0. It's just the Patriot Act applied to a digital space. It's sometimes still commonly referred to as the banning TikTok bill, because that's one of the things it would do. But honestly, that's just one asterisk at this point. Banning TikTok is just on the long list of things this would do. TikTok was just the convenience scapegoat. They had a hearing around TikTok. Mm-hmm. It was just a bunch of Chinese fear mongering. It was absolute nonsense. Are there security concerns around TikTok? Absolutely. But they're the same security concerns you have on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. In fact, in those hearings, it was revealed that Facebook and Instagram are even worse. They're selling your data. TikTok doesn't actually do that. They could, but they're not doing it as of the recording of this. Facebook and Instagram, they do that. That's how they make their money. They don't care. So, it's like any finger you could point at TikTok, you could have 3 or 4 pointed back at Facebook, Instagram, etc. But those are all domestic, so we're not worried about those. So it was just this nonsensical hearing. And
just to interject real quick, I mean, I thought it was so funny just on a personal note, because I've been demonetized by YouTube for over 2 years because I talk about Epstein and the JFK assassination, and I have the audacity to say that all wars that America's are awful. And also, as I was just talking at the top of this segment, I've had Instagram reject 6 of my they don't want my ad money. I'm trying to pay them and they don't want it because I'm talking about how both parties are awful, how the media is awful, how, it's jokes from my special manifest that are pretty political. And then even my dating thing. So I'm being censored at every level, but we're supposed to believe, based on that ridiculous kangaroo court congressional hearing, that TikTok and China is the real threat. Yeah. How are we any different than North Korea? If
which, by the way, just for the record too, by the way, Americans' data isn't even in China. The way TikTok operates, Americans' data is in the United States. Like, it's
Right.
operated by people in the United States, and then some of it is in Singapore, and they want to, just put it all in the United States. So it's not even like it's not even in China. Like it's so freaking absurd. Like just the layers to the absurdity of this just bullshit, fear mongering, really. And so the legislation that's out there now, the Restrict Act, it applies to web applications, payment applications, desktop applications. It applies to basically everything except for a pen and piece of paper. Anything that involves power, it applies to. That's why it could criminalize having a VPN, which is a virtual private network. It could criminalize that. It messes with the Berman Amendments. The Berman Amendments allows us as American citizens to pursue information from places that aren't the United States, from other places in the world too, to have a well-rounded perspective. Imagine that. If the Berman Amendments are messed with, which this bill does, it would give any given president or whatever committee the ability to decide what you can and can't see that comes from outside the United States. And penalties can be up to $1 million fine, up to 25 years in jail. And here, this is I'll read this piece just because of how absurd this is. I don't want to spend too much time reading a bill because it's a little dry, but this is the thing. This gives the U.S. Secretary of Commerce the broad power to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person or with respect to any property that the Secretary determines to pose an undue or unacceptable risk. That could be anything. And this includes federal elections, information and communications technology products and services, critical infrastructure or digital economy. Again, that's pretty much everything. Coercive or criminal activities by a foreign adversary that are designed to undermine democratic processes and institutions, or steer policy and regulatory decisions in favor of the strategic objectives of a foreign adversary to the detriment of the national security of the United States. In other words, if you're doing anything on any device or looking at anything that contradicts what the United States says, that could be a problem. I mean, it's absurd. Like, it is so broad and vague, and the punishments are so severe. And guess who's one of the main architects of this bill? Mark Warner out of Virginia. Mark Warner is one of the wealthiest members in all of Congress, the House, the Senate, etc. He's one of the wealthiest members. Where does he have a ton of investments? Domestic software. What does this bill do? Demonizes anything that isn't domestic software. That would be the equivalent of somebody in government who has a vested interest in domestically produced maple syrup all of a sudden putting all these bills forth to stop anything from coming in from Canada. That's how freaking absurd it is, and how basic the conflict of interest is. And here we are.
Well, not only that, your analogy, it's not just restricting maple syrup from Canada. It's arresting somebody that has maple syrup from Canada.
Right.
Is what that's what's even more absurd. And it's so funny. It's really, you hate to be the I told you so's, but when they first passed the Patriot Act 20 years ago, you go, oh, this is a slippery slope. And it's like and that's why it was like, well, I didn't vote for, why didn't you vote for Hillary Clinton? Because you're a misogynist? No, because I don't like someone that voted for the war in Iraq, voted for the Patriot Act, and stumped on the floor of the Senate about how we need to bomb everybody, and then became Secretary of State and helped Obama drop more bombs than Bush. Like, you saw all of this happening. And now, I mean, it's gotten so insane. I mean, again, it was a year ago that the Department of Justice shut down RT America. And what this bill is doing is just doubling down on that. That was basically saying the American people cannot be trusted to watch any information that isn't come from the American empire. And so we don't trust America.
Which, by the way, it was an American bureau run by Americans. I mean, all the outlets, and they only targeted Russia and China,
right?
And just to also remind everybody, what they used there was what's called the FARA Act, or FARA, FARA. I'm not sure how you say it, but they used that act. Which, by the way, that act was written under the context of stopping Nazi spies during World War II. So it was written under that context. When you apply it to today, it has no purpose. Just like all those other acts that they use to prosecute whistleblowers. It's like, okay, all of these acts were written under the lens of a world war when we were fighting a world war. We're not fighting a world war right now. So when you have these policies that said, well, you can't do anything about that undermines the security of the United States, what is that code for now? It means anything that disrupts the war machine. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
only going to be used. I mean, it's like that's how this stuff works. And now you see new policy like this. This is literally just Patriot Act for the digital space.
And way worse in terms of, again, like you see what the threat is. The threat is people are getting their information outside of the controlled sources, and they want you to just watch MSNBC or Fox because that keeps you in the, red versus blue narrative. So that's one of the reasons why I think I've been censored so much, is because if I had a YouTube channel that was just like a neoliberal one saying, blaming the Republicans for everything, I don't think I would be demonetized. If I didn't call out the war machine, if I just said, oh, the Republicans are bad and Democrats are good, I don't think I'd be demonetized. Or if I was a right-wing channel saying, oh, the liberals are killing everybody, but freedom in America and a, pickup truck and a, whatever, steak chop, that's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of steak chop advertisers too, man. They'd be all over you.
Big steak chop.
Big steak chop. Wash it down with some lead energy drink. You're good, man.
So it's like, anytime you talk in the way that you talk on your show, or me or Lee Camp or whatever, where we're calling out the whole system, and when you call out the war machine and you call out the fact that America is actually in class warfare, they don't want that, because they're not dumb, the ruling elites. They're watching what's happening in France. I mean, they're shutting France down because of 2 extra years of working.
Yeah, right.
And that whole
boy, could we take some lessons?
Oh, and we won't even, I mean, we've talked about it before. There is this, I get excited when I see the young people that are like unionizing all those Starbucks. That's great. But they don't want to, they have done everything to make sure that Americans don't get together in the streets. They saw a glimpse of that in the summer of 2020 when the George Floyd thing happened, and then Jacob Blake, and they were like, everything got shut down. And when the sports teams went on strike, it was like, here we go. If you shut down sports in America, then
yeah, that's the awakening.
That's the awakening. And they went, no, Obama, go shut this down. He shut it down, and everyone went back to partying and brunch, and they just got to keep us fighting about all of these issues that some of them are important, but not the real. They want us to anything to steer us clear from, like, you can go protest Roe v. Wade because that's a very divisive subject. But if you get everybody on the same page, we're all getting screwed over by the 1%. Both parties are bought and paid for by the 1%. We should have healthcare. I mean, we should. It's mystifying to me that we don't have 10 times bigger protests than they're having in France because we don't have free healthcare. That should be sending Americans to the streets. What's happening in Palestine, Ohio, and Flint, Michigan, and Mississippi, and 1,000 other American cities. And 1,000 is not an exaggerated number. That's an estimated number of cities with contaminated water in America. That should be sending people to the streets. We can't even, I mean, our kids aren't safe. No one's safe in this country. And yet they're going to pass. And why TikTok is such a threat, because TikTok has all of these alternative narratives coming out of it. There's a lot of people talking about a lot of different subjects on TikTok in ways that don't fit the us versus them narrative. And so they got to shut that down. And the main thing is, like, we don't want a foreign country influencing and monitoring the American citizen. Only we get to do that.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I mean, that hearing was so ridiculous. Something that I haven't done yet, but I'd like to do. I want to play those hearings side by side. The hearings that Mark Zuckerberg faced compared to the hearings that the TikTok CEO Chu, or I forget how you say his name, but Xiaozi Shu. The hearing that he faced compared to Mark Zuckerberg's. During his hearing, they were like, does TikTok sell Americans data. And he's like, no, we haven't done that. Could you? And he, by definition, yes, we could. You see, he said they could. We got to shut this down. China bad. You're a terrible human being. And in the Mark Zuckerberg hearing, they're just like, does Facebook sell Americans data? Yeah, of course, nerds. How else do you think I make money? Okay, no further questions. Fair enough. Like
Yeah.
it was absurd. It's the ridiculous double standard. Like it was ridiculous. Because at the end of the day, Graham, if they wanted to actually solve these problems they're mentioning, what they would do instead of this, horrible, horrible piece of legislation, they would have a data privacy bill that applies to all social media. It applies across the
Mm.
board to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. But they won't do that. You know why? That would hurt Mark Zuckerberg and his ilk in their pocketbook, and they don't want to do that. They
And
don't want to hurt the Mark Zuckerbergs or the Elon Musks in their pocketbook.
no, and look, I mean, we've covered it. You and I both covered it together on this show and separately on our shows during the Democratic primary and the presidential election. Like we just showed how many, Democrats get big tech money. The big tech spends a lot of money. I mean, it's like they spend more money with the Democrats than the Republicans. They spend on both, but more with the Democrats, just like the NRA spends more. The oil companies spend more with the Republicans than Democrats, but they still spend with both parties. And that's what big tech, they have all of these politicians bought and paid for. And as was revealed in the book when WikiLeaks met Google, Eric Schmidt, the head of Google, which owns YouTube, started doing data collection for the CIA and the intelligence community in general in 2011. So that's a part of this thing that also needs to be discussed. This isn't just data collection for the big tech companies. They do data collection, and then the CIA and the NSA go, we'd like to get a look at that. And they're like, yeah, no problem. I mean, it's not a wacky coincidence that, Jeff Bezos was paid $600 million by the CIA to, use his servers for their information. I mean, it's all part of this. And now Americans, I like the Restrict Act is 1,000 times worse than raising the retirement age from 62 to 64.
Right.
And
we're not,
no one's doing anything.
Well, and the funny thing is, it's like, it's sort of by design. Like there's so many circumstantial things. Like in France, their healthcare is not tied to their job.
Right.
So it's easier to just shut shit down. They also get, comparatively speaking, they get living wages. They get decent living wages in France, especially compared to here, where you're working 2 and 3 jobs just to survive. That's not the case there. So it's like so much easier for them. And I shouldn't say easy because it's never easy, but it is more attainable for them to go on strike when they need to. So they don't tolerate it. They just don't tolerate it. And they got it down to a science. And they're not afraid. And they're like, yeah, we will cover your house with shit. They did that to a politician. They covered their house with shit. I mean, they're not afraid to just shut it down. They're like, you're not getting on a train. We're done. No one's collecting your garbage. Good luck. And it's, man.
Well, what it also shows, it highlights how effective as Chris Hedges calls it, the like 4 or 5 decades corporate coup of America. And one of the things they did was they eviscerated unions because of this very thing. Right. Unions, all unions getting together. You don't want the train union and the garbage union and the air traffic controllers union and the radio broadcaster union and the TV union. You don't want them all getting together. So you eviscerate unions. Unions were also great for organizing for social causes, not just like workers' rights, but unions were very good at like, hey, this ain't right. Like, imagine if we had the unions we had back in the 40s and 50s, the unions that were created during the last, huge labor struggle of the 20s and 30s of 100 years ago. Imagine if we had just really strong unions when the George Floyd stuff happened. When Jacob Blake happened, then the whole country, the unions, a bunch of, all it would have taken is 3 or 4 big unions going, that's it. Shut it down. A bunch of other unions would have joined in, and they know how effective that is. I mean, the ruling elites in America have been so smart in terms of eviscerate the unions. It's why we stopped having a draft after Vietnam. So we make everybody poor. And guess what? Like you said, you tie this in. They have, social public health care, free health care in France. We don't have that here. You can get it at your job. You can also get it in the army, Ron. So why don't you join the army? And now there you go. Boom. We've got economic conscription because they saw all the kids in the 60s and 70s burning their draft cards. They don't want that. So they have eviscerated every opportunity for collective groundswell resistance, and they've kept us divided with each other. It's American exceptionalism is part of this propaganda. Part of American exceptionalism is me. I did it all alone, so I don't want to join your group. I don't want to. You saw, I mean, again, you and I talked about this at great length in numerous, personal prone conversations. Everyone was together, especially indie left media. We're all together in the beginning part of it. And then a year later, the vaccine and the mandates, everyone starts fighting with each other. They did a great job of dividing all of us. I mean, they did a great job of that. And they got America fighting with each other. Most of the country was together in the summer of May of 2020, 3 years ago. Everyone and the whole world was protesting along with us.
Yeah.
The whole world. And it wasn't just George Floyd. It was pulling down Christopher Columbus statues. Remember, these two stories got very little play deliberately. In Atlanta, they were outside of CNN, not the Fox building. Like CNN is headquarters out of Atlanta. And so you'd think like, oh, they just want to burn, and Atlanta's a largely black city. They were like, the hell with CNN. They were like, the hell with all of it. And then also, the week of the George Floyd, by the end of the week, there were people breaching the perimeter at the White House. And even CNN and MSNBC didn't cover it because had they put that on the news, tens of thousands of people would have said, that's it. And they would have stormed the castle. And so they don't want that because they see look at France as a nation of what? 25, 30 million people or something like that. Like 50, how big is France? It's not even half the state of California. And it wouldn't take much, man. You start getting 20, 30, 40 million people in the streets. That's not a lot of people in a country of 350 million people. That's 5-10% of the population gets in the streets. It shuts it down and they don't want it. And they're tracking. That's the other thing about this act. They have the sophisticated software. They're tracking all of this. They're watching this show. They're watching your show. They know how many times hashtag general strike is said in a day. They know how many people are streaming and watching what's going. That's the other thing. TikTok is live streaming what's going on in France. You can't watch it on CNN or MSNBC or Fox, but you can watch what's going on in France every day on TikTok. You open up your phone right now. They're streaming a protest in TikTok in France right now on TikTok.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, it's the truth. And we, a couple years ago, I really thought, we might turn, a new page and just head, and then it just completely went to shit. It completely went to shit. And now they're just, and that's the other part of this too on TikTok. The young people especially are really using it to mobilize. Yes. They're using it to organize. They're using it to mobilize. They're using it to advance causes and advance policy ideas. And the powers that be definitely don't like that. They don't want to see that, especially since a lot of them don't really understand TikTok compared to and by the way, full disclaimer, I don't really understand it, to tell you the truth. I mean, I use it. I'm on it. I don't really know what I'm doing.
Same
but,
here.
And I've had some you've had some videos do really, really well. I've had a couple videos do well. I don't know how. I couldn't explain what the difference is. I don't know why something got, 100,000 views and something else got 100, which is literally the range I've gotten on TikTok.
Yeah. Oh God.
But yeah, I mean, there's something. I don't know. But
I've gone from 200 views to 4 million. Like that's my range. Anywhere in there.
It's crazy, man. I mean, it's cool, but yeah, I don't really understand the platform. I don't understand how to use it or how to engage with it. I don't, I mean, I'm on there. Feel free to follow me, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And but I mean, it's getting, and my fear too is that we see a lot of parallels between now and when the Patriot Act happened, in the sense that people are really just distracted by a million different things. And right now, like there's good reason for that. There's a million and five things going on. But it's like that's when stuff like this gets pushed through. In the dead of night when people are divided and distracted by a million different things and you push through this freaking horrible legislation.
It's why like all of the fights like this nonstop debate, anything just comes in. Some of them are legitimate discussions they have. Roe v. Wade, the trans issue, like, okay, those are things we should talk, but they push it when they're pushing something so hard. I'm like, what else is happening behind the scenes? Because I remember when Roe v. Wade last year got overturned, that's when they moved Ghislaine Maxwell from a maximum security prison in New York to a minimum security prison in Florida. Like that happened very, very quietly, You
never hear about her anymore, actually.
Is that
They've
weird?
completely, yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing they don't want us talking about is all of the powerful people that are, all of their names should be coming to the forefront. Like this should be like Watergate. Like we hear about a new person every week and there's a new investigation and a new indictment, but it's just like quiet down off to the side. So, well, I'll say this, every time I feel like, oh boy, America's never going to get it. There's just, every time I think I lose hope. I said this when Chris Hedges was on my show a couple months ago, and he brought up a good point. He goes, every time he's seen a revolution somewhere in other countries, he's covered it as a foreign correspondent. There's always this groundwork of tinder and something just happens and everybody kind of, and he gives it a great example historically. I love history because it tells us a lot, which is Lenin gave a speech to a bunch of Bolsheviks, I think in Sweden, when Lenin was like 50 years old. And at the speech, he goes, I don't think we're going to see a Russian Revolution in my lifetime. 6 weeks later, he was in St. Petersburg leading the Russian Revolution. So it's like, anything can happen. I mean,
anything can happen, Graham.
Oh, speaking of that, April 22nd, get your tickets at grahamelwood.com. But like, I remember, when I was a kid, up until the early 80s, my father, a scholar, very smart man, talking to some of his friends about how the Berlin Wall was never going to come down. And it did. It came down in 1989 or 90 or whatever. So I don't know. I like I say, I see little glimpses of hope, but then I always like, oh, when is America going to wake up? When is it going to wake up? And I've kind of like given up hope that it will, but you never know. Who knows?
Yeah, I see glimpses. Yeah, I see glimpses of hope too, but I also the other side of that too, though, is like I've stopped asking myself where is the floor, because on a near daily basis, I'm discouraged again. I'm like, there's no way it gets more ridiculous than this, and then a day later it does, and I'm like, okay, I don't know where we're free falling. Like I know that like we're just free falling. I mean, I can say like in my adult life, I never thought it would get this bad. I kind of thought, the day Bush got out of office, I was like, well, I think that's the bottom. And from a presidential standpoint, so far it was. We haven't had worse than Bush quite yet from a presidential standpoint, but society wise, I mean, it's like we're way worse off than we were, like those years ago, and we're in a worse place, like society wise. So who knows what's going to be around the corner. When you look at stuff like, Ron DeSantis in Florida and stuff like that, like there is some really fucking gnarly shit out there that I think has the potential to be worse than Bush politically, which I never thought that could happen. I mean, I thought for sure, like, well, this is the floor. There's no way where, I mean, just like, and not even just Bush himself, but the neocon agenda, the new American century. I mean, these are just like the fucking ghouls of society. We're never going to be like this terrible again. No, we're heading, I mean, society wise, we're even worse now. So
we're worse because the Democratic Party enables them and says they won't, and then helps them out. I mean, this is the thing that the analogy, they celebrate them and secretly are glad when they succeed, so that the Democrats, it'll help their fundraising. You go, oh, the evil Republicans, you have to send us a check to beat them, like they, and you know, I make this analogy with America. America is like an addict, an alcoholic or a drug addict. And someone who's using it, it can always get worse.
Yeah.
And you keep thinking, you see a friend of yours that's got a bad drug or alcohol problem. You see them like, oh my God, they got a DUI. Now they're going to get sober. Nope. No, they lost their job. Oh, like that someone, oh man, they're, you know, they're living in some shitty apartment with a bunch of roommates, you know, smoking fucking heroin or whatever, you know, like, oh, they got to go to court because their ex got a restraining order against them. I'm not saying about anyone specifically, but, and, you know, you think, oh, they'll get sober, but they won't. And I will quote, Russell Brand said this when Amy Winehouse OD'd and died. Russell Brand is a recovering heroin addict. And he said, so this is what is coming for America. Okay. But this is what Russell Brand said about a drug addict, specifically a drug addict. Alcoholics can function a little more in society, but a drug addict usually hits harder. Not that alcoholics can't have brutal, you know, rock bottoms, but he said, here's the thing with a drug addict. You're going to get a phone call. And maybe the phone call is, hey, I got my life sober and I got clean and I'm sorry for all the shit and the chaos I created and the pain I caused you when I was using. I'm sorry, I'm sober now. Or, hey, so-and-so's dead. They OD'd and died. He goes, it's one of those two calls, but you're going to get a phone call. And America, the world is going to get a phone call. Either America is going to go, hey, we're sorry, we screwed up, we've changed it, we've gotten rid of these fascists and these neoliberal enablers. The neoliberals are the enablers. The neoliberals are the person that go, look, let them drink. They've had a hard day at work. No, they're an alcoholic. They need to go to rehab. Oh, come on. That's the Democratic Party. Or they're going to get a, hey, America's dead. It's done. It's collapsed into just abject civil war. And there's fascist factions killing each people are just, it's going to devolve into Yugoslavia in the 90s where there's just warring, you know, juntas just slaughtering whoever they can in their group, whatever group doesn't like this group, you're going to see that happening. And a financial collapse is coming. And if a financial collapse happens, then the foreign money, the like Saudi and Chinese and the big European money that's been parking its money here for decades because it's been safe here. The minute it feels like its money's not safe, when they pull their money out, then we're done. Then it's like, it's going to cost $50 for a loaf of bread. And then there's going to be crazy riots in the streets. And then God only knows what's going to happen in a nation full of 200 million guns. So, but America's an addict and it's going down. It's just fast. It's not, are we collapsing? We are a collapsing empire. The only questions are how long will the collapse and how far will it go? It's like someone's an alcoholic. So they're going to hit a rock bottom and hopefully they hit a rock bottom that makes them get sober or they're going to destroy and die. And the other thing about active addicts, they destroy everything else around them because they hate themselves so much. So that's why it's like, you got to kind of get out of the way. I hope America fixes itself. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it. The greed and the corruption and the propaganda. I don't know, man, but.
Well, in the meantime, everybody go to stoptherestrictact.org.
Yes.
And sign the petition to stop this freaking horrible Patriot Act Part 2 because, you know, everything you said is absolutely right on. And if we have a Patriot Act Part 2 applied to the digital space, that'll make everything 10 times more difficult. So please go to stoptherestrictact.org and sign the petition to stop this horrible, horrible piece of legislation.
Despite all that dark stuff I talked about, there is stuff you can do. There is some little slivers of hope, and signing this thing is something as an action you can take. We can all take it to do it. We got to do something. We can't just sit here and we got to do something. And we're doing this to protect our own selves and our own freedom and our own digital autonomy. So it's important to do that. And so, Ron, I know you got some tour dates.
Yeah, I do. May 12th, I'll be in Los Angeles. And then June 16th, Madison, Wisconsin. June 17th, Minneapolis. June 23rd, Detroit. June 28th, Bloomington, Indiana. June 29th, Chicago. For Chicago, Minneapolis, and Madison, use the promo code Lucy at checkout for an early bird special. That's for a limited time only, so grab your tickets now. And Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm doing the Edinburgh Fringe Fest August 16th through 27th. And you can get tickets and all information at my website, ronplacone.com. And October 21st, I'm doing a series in my neighborhood of San Pedro. So tickets and all information, ronplacone.com. And if I could mention, everybody go over to my YouTube channel, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed already, but please watch my pilot Loner. I released a pilot not too long ago, and I know people have been watching it. Thank you guys who have seen it so far. If you haven't seen it yet, see it. Episode 1's a lot of fun. We're hopefully going to make the rest of the series soon, and I'm working on a movie. So I got some stuff in the film world coming out. So please do check out Loner to start out. And Graham's in my movie. He does an amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And speaking of cool stuff, Ron and I are doing together this Saturday, April 22nd, the Anything Can Happen, the political game show. We are live streaming it. It's a ticketed event, so you can watch it anywhere from the comfort of your own home at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. That's at grahamelwood.com. Also have a show this week in Venice Beach, California, April 20th. And then Hawaii, I'm headlining the islands, Maui, April 27th, Kona on the Big Island, April 28th, and Honolulu on the beautiful island of Oahu on April 29th. And then next month, I am in Arizona, Phoenix, May 11th, and Tucson, May 12th. Get your tickets at grahamelwood.com, which is also sign up for my newsletter, because that's a way to empower ourselves as a performer and as a content creator or a business owner. If I have your email address, they can't stifle. They've been stifling social media, but if I have a big newsletter, I can get a hold of you without the big tech companies stifling me. So that's another reason to sign up for the newsletter. You get a free smoothie recipe for that. And please support the Anything Can Happen live stream, because we want to be doing more of these. We're working on, having this as a big time show with a budget and an audience. And so it's a cool thing for all of you to support at grahamelwood.com. And of course, you can watch my special, Manifest It, the special that is censored and dangerous. It's too dangerous. They don't want you to watch it because I'm too dangerous of a comedian. Vegan surfing comedians are a threat to your freedoms. So fight Big Brother by watching my special at grahamelwood.com. Ron Placone, thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I'll see you Saturday, and I can't wait to see you all there as well. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, we'll see you Saturday, everybody. Thanks.
Right. Peace.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood, and go to grahamelwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.